Talking about a revolution. Welcome to week 3 of Join the Revolution. I hope you have already been engaging with the videos so far in the series and doing the practices. If you haven't seen those yet, go back and check those videos out. This week, you and I are continuing to look at the elements required for spiritual revolution. The revolution in your own being and the revolution collectively and for the world. One of those elements is community. The work of spiritual living, the work of spiritual revolution cannot be done in isolation. You and I need each other. We need each other in this. There is no reality that does not include inherent connection. That doesn't include shared divinity. And when you and I actively engage in community, particularly intentional community, the capacity to know ourselves whole, to know the truth of the divine grows immensely. And it's you can't actually know the truth of your wholeness, the truth of the divine in isolation alone. It's not possible. So I want to talk about that more in the sense of what it means in this community. You know, establishing this community as a community of practice, a community of intention, a community that is made up of people deeply committed to their own liberation and the liberation of all, the spiritual revolution. A community that is deeply committed to doing the work and putting in the labor required for that spiritual revolution, for that liberation that is possible for every single one of us. That is the community that I am creating and participating in with you, and I am so, so glad you are here and that you are saying a holy, sacred yes to the revolution and to being in community with the folks who have also committed themselves and said that sacred holy yes to doing this practice, this work. So let's talk about really what I think spiritual community and intentional community for the purposes of liberation and for the purpose of the revolution that you and I are committing ourselves to, have already said a yes to, and that is already underway. First, I want to talk about one of the beautiful aspects of community that happens in this way is the chance to be affirmed and to be affirming to the folks that you are in community with. And I think that happens in a bunch of ways. One of the ways that being affirmed and doing the work of affirming is the willingness to show up in community vulnerably. The power of vulnerability. Because here's the thing, when you and I choose to show up vulnerably, affirmation can happen. But when you and I show up armored, costumed, deep in our false narratives, affirmation actually cannot happen because you're not allowing yourself to be seen. Or you are not able to see through the costume, through the armor, through the false perceptions and images. And so this is part of that thing that I was talking about last week, is that our values and our theology have to be lived. They have to be made real. Otherwise, we'll say cute things like, we're an affirming community, but we are not actively in the business of affirming if you and I are not showing up authentically and vulnerably, and not growing our capacity to offer the safety and the love necessary for others to do the same. The other thing I want to offer around affirmation is sometimes the affirmation isn't spoken or obvious. Sometimes the affirmation that you and I can offer one another in community is reflection. When you show up authentically and allow yourself to be seen and affirmed, sometimes that just happens by looking across the room and seeing someone who is reflecting a good in you, a characteristic in you, a truth in you, and that simply allowing that reflection to be taken in. That is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful experience in community. To know that you can be reflected back to yourself in all of your whole beautiful ways, in all of the ways that you show up. Those reflections will be there. Another place that community serves in this work, in the transformation of your own thinking and the capacity of you to be able to show up more wholly and authentically, is because we bump into each other. We bump, we get messy, we trigger each other. But that's actually a gift of community, is to bump in, is to oops, ouch, right? Is to say a thing or do a thing that you did not mean harm, but it created a little bit of harm. I'm not talking about like awful, horrible harm here. That is not safe community. I'm talking about, oops, I'm so sorry I said that. I didn't mean that to hit you like that. And I want to remind you that intention is not the same as impact. And one of the beautiful things about intentional community is that we deal in the realm of impact. You may not have intended to say something that hurt me, but it did. And so let's lovingly, honestly be with the hurt. And you and I get the opportunity to work that out. I get to say, ouch. And you get to say, oops, so sorry. How can I reconcile this with you? What would have been a better way to say that, right? These simple, small things that you and I do in community, in messiness and bumping into each other, are transformative in big ways. They may seem small, but the truth is think of a time right now when maybe you've done an oops and had to clean it up. And that how uncomfortable it is. But in growing our capacity to be in those uncomfortable moments and meet them and let them change us, to let somebody saying ouch to you change you and transform an idea that you've had maybe, or a habit that you've been involved in that you didn't even know was possibly harming someone or hurting someone. This is, my friends, one of the powers of community, beloved, intentional, spiritual community of practice, where you and I practice these skills together. Next, one of the aspects of spiritual community of practice that I think is really important is behaving in alignment with the shared community values. This is a biggie. One of the things that I think is really important when you and I engage in any community is check out the values, check out the culture. The values are part of the culture, and see if they are a fit for you, right? Like, I highly encourage you, if you don't already know the values of the Albuquerque Center for Spiritual Living, go to the website, go to the About Us page, and read the values and the what we believe, which gives you a sense of the culture of this community. And see if that's a fit for you. Is that something you can get down with? Do you share those values? And if you are a yes to sharing those values, and they are meaningful and inspiring, hopefully to you, then being in community means that you are in agreement with behaving in a way that is in alignment with those values. And we are in agreement. And then we get to lovingly, which leads me to my next point of spiritual community, hold each other accountable to those values. Lovingly. Heart-centered accountability. Community without accountability is not safe. And that is part of what you and I get to do in this revolution, is to learn how to lovingly hold one another accountable. And say, hey, you and I have agreed to a value of oneness, the number one value. So when you are gossiping with me or judging somebody, you are out of alignment with this value that we've agreed to share and behave in alignment with. And you get to say to your beloved, that feels out of alignment. I'm not loving how you're talking about them right now. I actually don't want to hear that. It doesn't feel good to me. I love you, and that does not feel good to me. Right? These are the ways that you and I get to grow and stretch in beloved community, in a community of practice. We practice what we preach. And lastly, the biggest one for me that I think matters, they all matter. Nothing matters more than the other, but this is a huge one that I think is unique sometimes in spiritual community, intentional spiritual community, is presence. This is one of the ones that I hold really sacred, is that I do not want to show up in community, whatever kind of the event may be, whether it's right here with you now through the video screen, without my full presence and attention. That is one of the beauties of practicing in spiritual community, is learning how to be fully present for one another, how to be fully present for ourselves, and making that commitment. Like, I'm going to show up at a gathering. I'm going to show up in a small group, in a class, in a Zoom meeting with my full attention, my full presence, and doing what I have to do before I show up so that I can be fully present and bring myself wholly to it. Because one of the beauties of community is your whole presence. The joy I have in community is getting to be with people authentically and getting to be in the presence of all of these different humans and the ways that they show up in their wholeness. That is one of the beauties you and I get to offer one another. And so some of the skills in that presence I want to talk about a little bit are allowing, the skill of allowing, which means allowing other people to show up exactly as they are in that moment without judgment. This is a skill. This requires practice, my friends. The other part of that is deep listening. Listening, fully present, without thinking about what you're going to say, without thinking about what they're saying or finding a solution for them as they're sharing with you. Simply listening. Full attention. No response being made up while they're talking. Just present. This allowing and listening is big deal practice stuff. And we got to do that together in community of practice. This is why I do what I do. This is why I'm here with you right now. It isn't just to give you some ideas to think about. It's that you and I get to be together and be involved in the revolution that liberates you from any false narratives and liberates me. And then collectively, we get to show up in a world that is the manifest reality of truth. And these are the skills we need to do it. And we get to practice these skills with each other. What a gift, spiritual community. So, when I give you your homework this week, there's a caveat. The work, the practice, is sometimes and often solo work. So the practice I'm going to offer you is another meditation practice that you will do solo. The caveat is I want you to share what's been rising in you, what maybe you've been journaling about, what you've noticed in your practice in community with your prayer partner. Put it on the forum through a comment. Share a video in the forum of what you are learning. Allow yourself to be seen. Allow yourself to connect with others who are doing these practices parallel alongside you right now. So here's the practice. Same as before. I want you to find something that has been rising in your practice over these last couple of weeks. And I want you to choose something. Choose a situation that is out of whack in your life, not working, that feels sucky. And I want you to get comfy, sit in your position of meditation, whatever works best for you. Take those few deep breaths, allow yourself to fully engage and pay attention to what those breaths sound like and feel like in your body so that you can arrive. And then you're going to sit with what's out of whack. You're going to sit with it. And I want you to notice maybe what is motivating you in that situation. What beliefs are connected to what is out of whack in your life right now. And I want you to really allow yourself to sit in that discomfort and really be vulnerable with yourself. Sit in it as long as you can. Allow it to show you what is really out of alignment. Allow it to show you what is triggered in you. What is the misbelief that allows that situation to continue? Whatever that is for you. And then I want you to share what comes up. That's the big deal for this week's practice. Notice the inner dialogue. Notice the feelings. Notice what is motivating the behaviors or the thoughts. Notice and then share what you're learning in community. Viva la revolution! I love you so much.